Well, welcome all to Under the Surface podcast. Under the Surface is for CEOs, COOs, and CFOs in community-driven financial institutions and growth-oriented businesses who want honest conversations about leadership, risk, independence, and the decisions that don't show up in boardrooms. This podcast is about things leaders don't always say out loud, the trade-offs, the pressures, and the real decisions that shape how they work and lead. I'd like to introduce to you Renee Cormier. Renee has spent years building sustainable, independent business. She's seen upside the uncertainty and the invisible work that comes with staying self-employed, especially in a market that's changing fast. Welcome, Renee. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. It's your first podcast, so congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So lead me through it. Renee is a marketing strategist, business and marketing consultant, and the founder of the Fractional Referral Network. The network is a community of independent leaders focused on supporting long-term independent practice and being respected for their expertise. Renee works across marketing strategy, business consulting, and organizational design, which gives her a front row seat to what leaders are actually wrestling with in today's market. Today, the conversation is titled, The Real Work of Staying Independent, What It Takes to Build a Sustainable Fractional Business. However, it should go beyond, our conversation should go beyond just the fractional. It's really going to be focused around those leaders in these organizations that need to make obviously important decisions. They need to set boundaries, navigate markets, build their organizations. And Renee is a great insight in regards to those kinds of recommendations, those insights of what leaders can take on as they move into 2026. This is going to be a guided conversation. We'll start with a question, and I think then we're just going to go from there. And so I'm going to start that. Renee, so before we talk about models, labels, or trends, take us back to when and why you chose independence. What led you here, and what made you stay?
I've been self-employed off and on my whole life, my whole adult life, so I've always wanted to have my own business. I always wanted to do my own thing. And, life happens, and sometimes you have to take a job, and sometimes you can go out on your own. And I had to learn an awful lot on my own the hard way, because I didn't have people to mentor me. I didn't have anyone to show me the ropes or tell me what to avoid or, things like that. So I had very little support through that journey. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. So all these years later, I find myself in a position now where I can help people who are just starting on that entrepreneurial journey get over the hump and avoid the mistakes that I made and most people make out of ignorance. Purely that's all it is. It's just not really knowing what you need to do. A lot of people think, you hang a sign up on you're going to go out and be self-employed. You're going to start a business, and you think that you can put your sign up and suddenly, the world is going to follow and start banging on your door. But it just doesn't work that way, especially in areas where you're doing B2B stuff. There's a different approach that goes toward client acquisition.
And it's interesting because when you say that, and obviously your independent experience is far longer than mine. And as I dove into this in 2024 as an independent consultant, I learned those kinds of same things. Everything was turned upside down from a corporate perspective. I've always said to people, my LinkedIn, I had to turn my LinkedIn at 180 degrees and, completely different set of messaging. And I've been, doing that now since 2024. And through you as well as a mentor and a coach, which I've appreciated it, I've taken on those lessons, those experiences that you have, and tried not to, and learned from those. I still, trip over myself, and at times not as committed to making connections and things like that. It is I don't know, it's a big undertaking, but a very rewarding one in specific to being independent, not being part of the corporate world, as well as all the various kinds of things that independent consultants and leaders learn, different industries, different organizations. So, do you feel the same way in regards to that? Right? You've had experiences with different organizations, different clients, et cetera. Is that kind of what you've been seeing and what you feel has been
Yeah,
successful?
we all trip over ourselves.
Yeah.
Even experienced people. You never reach the top of the mountain. There's always stuff to learn, and
Yeah.
marketing. Environmental. There's a lot going on in the world at any given moment that affects marketing and affects the market per se, and so there are marketing trends that come and go, like the introduction of AI, for example, has changed the marketing game. The internet changed marketing. The printing press changed
Right.
marketing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. It's
there's
true.
always something, right? And then there are, economic factors like, wars and trade problems. And, as you know, we live in a very complicated world, and that doesn't ever change. It's just one thing or another. And anything you do in terms of marketing only works until everybody starts doing it. And then it's not, you got to do something else to keep it fresh. And, so you always have to come up with better ideas. And what worked last month might not work next month.
Yeah.
You always have to keep trying to refine things. And so, it's always a process of learning, and your willingness to learn is what will make you good or great. It's the difference between, if you're not willing to learn anything new, if you're not willing to make a mistake, then you'll go to a dead end job. That would be your pocket. If you're the kind of person who is open to learning and open to making mistakes and open to possibilities, then you have more of an entrepreneurial mindset.
Awesome. Thanks. And one of the things that I've been struggling with a bit and talking to a lot of other folks as well as a consultant and leader type of perspective, and that is wanting to be uh, wanting to make sure I educate, wanting to make sure I had the foresight for my potential clients, right? And that is what I've already learned in the corporate world and bringing that in, but also what I've learned, my experiences in 2025 from a market perspective or from a business environment perspective. And so I've been struggling a bit specific to, well, okay, what are those educations that I could talk to financial institutions about or small business organizations that are really heading into 2026? So, I've been asking a lot of questions, but from your perspective regarding marketing or business shifts, what do you think leaders, business leaders, as well as probably the fractionals, that are least prepared for? What does 2026 look like to you?
What are they least prepared for, or what
Yeah,
should they? I
what do
think
you think they could be least prepared for? Just knowing the economy and just everything that's going on in the world. So that was kind of where I was going.
I think sometimes people focus on things like vanity metrics, you know, and you really need to look at what's working. You need to look at the data, and so it's not about like a lead is only as good as your ability to convert it, and likes don't bring you cash. Like if you're posting random crap without strategy, or if you are oh, I've got, we have an email list of 45,000 people, but if nobody's opening it, or you're not you're not strategically using your email list, then it's kind of a waste of time. It doesn't mean anything. So what you have needs to, in business, everybody's in business to make money. So all of that stuff has to be done strategically, and there needs to be there needs to be a system in place for analyzing the data that comes from your marketing efforts. And with respect to your own business as a CIO or a CTO, for banking, their customers want particular things. They need certain things. What is the bank owner or CEO rolling around in bed worrying about at night? And how does cybersecurity, which is your area of expertise, how does that play into what their customers need and how they can differentiate themselves from other people in the marketplace? And you're positioned now to educate bank leaders of the importance of IT and the role of security, cybersecurity in banking to protect customers and to protect the bank itself. Because one cybersecurity incident will ruin them. It will take them right out. And so it's the job of educating people, whatever your area of expertise is, whether it's marketing or IT or whatever, to position yourself or as what does the CEO want as it relates to what I offer?
Yeah.
How does this play into the grand vision of an organization, of my ideal client? So when you think about what you have to do in the year going forward to educate bank leaders around the importance of IT has traditionally been thought of as, the guys that are holding the Ethernet cables and controlling my email address. And it's so like, they're not given, they're almost like the dirty cousin, they're not really given any credibility in an organization. They should be part of the strategic operations and the strategic plan, not an afterthought. And any banking CEO who doesn't look at IT and cybersecurity as being integral to the success of their business is a moron, quite frankly.
Yeah. I'll agree with you there.
I said it.
Yeah, you got it out on the table. And for me, I completely agree with that, because for years in the corporate world, my goal has always been, no matter the size of the IT shop, my goal has always been, I've always said to people, I want to take IT from the back office to the front office, right? And really focus in on, okay, leaders of the organization. First off, IT is part of that. IT is as well as security is part of the organization. It's part of the DNA in that organization, and we need to be in the decision making perspectives, because technology is no longer the mainframes necessarily, and all that old technology, legacy technology. It's all consumerized technology now, and so with that, with AI, with so many changes happening probably on a weekly basis, IT needs to move to the front office, and so does security. And it really is a game changer. We need to partner with the business. And it's just a huge, I've always found it very challenging to get to have CEOs, COOs, et cetera, leaders overcome this perception that, no, you go sit in the corner and watch the blinking lights. And in every organization I've come into, boom, that's the first thing I say. We need a business partnership. We need decisions. We need to be part of your strategy and such. So I think that's one of the huge challenges, obviously, of any organization, of any CIO or CISO, that we play a huge part in all of this.
But isn't it the greatest benefit of being self-employed, Paul, is that when you come in to an organization, you're coming in as a business partner.
Yes.
someone who has a vested interest in building and moving the grand vision forward, right? Whereas
Yes.
as an employee, you often get treated as a second-class citizen or an expense, right? You're an
Correct.
expense and you're dispensable. Coming as a self-employed fractional professional, now you are a partner in growth, a growth partner for the organization, a strategic partner, someone who is helping them go forward in a very large way. And so you have the trust. You're in a position to gain the trust of the key decision makers, and be a part of building the foundation and strengthening the foundation of the business, whatever that business is. So that is a conversation. So when you
Yes.
go into a sales meeting, that's the conversation. When you create content online, the conversation has to be around how your expertise is not just, you're not just doing a job, that you have, that you're a strategist above all else, you know?
Correct.
And so that is how you get to be more than just a guy watching the blinking lights in the corner.
Right. And I've, it's interesting. You're right. I think I've seen a little bit more flexibility coming in as a leader
Uh-huh.
in a on demand way. And so you know, that's helped as far as setting expectations. That's helped maybe even setting strategy, etc. Sometimes still when um, you know, when when you finally want to execute, uh, and push comes to shove, there's still this like hesitancy. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to invest in these kinds of things. But I do see a little bit more of an open door in regards to taking my advice, letting them ask the tough questions. And maybe that's just because you're on outs, I've seen it where consultants are always seems to be this outside influence and they go, oh, well, we'll trust what the consultant says, that kind of thing versus somebody internal. And that maybe helps. I think it has helped. Hopefully that will continue because again, our purpose as a consultant is to make the business better, is to make the IT people better, is to make the leadership better. We're not in it for a permanent position. We're in it to say, boom, we want to see you successful, and this is how I would recommend it. So
And that's the fundamental difference between a consultant and a fractional.
yes,
The consultant puts together the $20,000 plan and walks away. That plan ends up in a box on the boardroom floor in a corner somewhere under a pile of books, and and nothing really gets implemented. But the fractional is going in and making meaningful changes and is taking ownership of the outcomes when the consultant is long gone.
yeah,
And so you're doing more than just consulting. You are embedded in the organization, and that makes it a tremendous investment for a company to hire a fractional professional, especially of your caliber, Paul, where uh, they can they can they can have that strategic input and all of the accountability as well, and they don't have to own you. Like there's no uh, just makes sense from a business perspective in so many ways. It's a non-committal relationship, but you're committed to the results,
are there
right?
with yeah, exactly. And one of the things I've been thinking about as we've been talking too is from a business perspective. So those CEOs, COOs, CFOs, whether it's financial, small business, whatever the case is, whatever these fractional leaders are trying to deliver for potential clients. Um, what you just said, and maybe I want to extend it a little bit, and that is if they're listening to this, and I'm talking the CEOs, COOs, et cetera, of a business, if they're listening to this, what are some of the key messages we should tell them in regards to this is why you want to consider fractional leadership? You've mentioned a few things, but where have you too seen, or your clients seen success to say, this is what you want to take away from this and not forget about it and not just ignore it because there's huge benefit to it?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, when you hire an employee, and there's nothing wrong with hiring employees, and there's nothing wrong with being an employee, but you're positioned differently, and you're given maybe perhaps less credibility than you probably deserve. Maybe you're not. You're in a position where you always have to justify your existence somehow, and you have to. Your time is your time is. You're not in charge of your time. But when you come in into a company as a fractional professional, the business owner or the business decision makers, they don't have to pay you all of the severance packages and the pensions and the insurance and all of the crap that they have to do for other employees. You're not an employee. You're independent, but you are embedded in the organization. So you have you are being accountable for the results that you create. You are, if you're doing it correctly, you should have a process and an outcome that you're working with the company. You're not just walking in and filling a space in an office or a chair. You're coming in with a mission, and it's to achieve a particular outcome within a particular amount of time. And the company can pay for that. And then if they need you for other things, you're there. And if you are, as a fractional, you should have a core offer and some supplementary offers, a couple of supplementary offers. And one of those offers should always be the ability to have them call on you as needed for a particular amount of money every month. I will check in and make sure everybody's, still on the same page and that we're still moving in the right direction.
Right.
And so they have access. They're paying for access to your expertise. And yet you're still very, very interested in results, and you're committed to that. And employees are also committed to those things. But if an employee wants to do something different and makes a suggestion, there's a pretty good chance that it won't be listened to.
Right. That's
Whereas
good point.
if you come in as an outside person, you're hired as a subject matter expert, and you're given automatically a level of authority that you deserve and have earned. It's earned authority, your many years of experience in an industry. But because the company doesn't own you, they see you differently and they treat you differently.
Yes, they do.
And
Yep.
and you get to have a business conversation with a business person, as opposed to an accountability conversation, boss to employee. You see?
Good. Yeah. Good
And
point. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so, as a business person having a business conversation, that's another level of
Yeah.
conversation.
It is. Yeah.
And employees don't think like business people. And when business-minded people come into an organization, if it's a big, heavily tiered organization, they don't really want you. You don't fit. If it's a small owner-operated thing, they think you're an entrepreneur's dream,
Right. Right. Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And,
So
and what
that's the difference.
and what I've seen too is we can be more succinct, right? We don't have to necessarily beat around the bush, or we, even from a culture perspective, right? Within that organization, it's like, okay, I'm here to solve what's keeping you up at night, right? And
Yes.
wanting to make you sleep. So here's boom. This is what I'm not going to soften it up. I'll obviously have a direct message and such, but most importantly, you want me to get to options, recommendations, and making sure that I understand what these issues are so that I can finally provide you what you need, whether it's me delivering it or whether it's, my recommendation to go, well, if you need this, here's someone that you should probably want to talk to, right? So it's that kind of thing. You don't have to, I don't know, consider the culture of the organization. It's just more boom, this is what I'm here for, and I'm going to deliver it as I've stated and as I've, under my statement of work, that type of a thing. So
Exactly.
does any of this messaging to the CEO or to the business, but also to the fractional leaders that are listening to this, is there any messaging changing because of 2026? Is it still just continue to do what you're doing? This is what I'm recommending you need to look at, or does some of the things that may occur in 2026 could change how a fractional person deals with a prospective client, or how a business leader looks at a fractional and says, oh, do you have this experience? Because this is what I'm seeing for our organization between, in 2026 and beyond. Does that change
Um,
anything?
I don't, honestly, I don't really know.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
here's what I think. I think that it's important for any fractional, if you're going to be in business and you want to be taken seriously, you need to have a strong foundation for your marketing and your sales. You need a process and a system that you follow consistently. You need to productize your offering. You need to solve a particular problem. And this is just basic business. But when you're an employee, even marketing people, the marketing is a whole lot of different things. They don't know everything about everything. I don't know everything about all levels of marketing. It can market. There's a lot. It's a big category. It covers a lot of things. And some people are up on digital marketing. Some people are really into whatever. So, like, you need, they're just basics in business is solve a problem, have a system for solving that problem, have a system for acquiring your sales, for developing your, and understand your marketing and understand how to sell. If you don't take the time to go and learn those things, and if you don't leverage the value of community in doing that, your referrals turn faster than anything. So community is probably the best thing you can invest in as a fractional. And even, for example, like you could also, as a fractional, have your own community of geared toward your ideal client, something that serves your ideal client. So, and it doesn't have to be a community of 50,000 people, and it doesn't have to become an extra job. But if you had the foresight and the wherewithal to put together just a monthly networking event for key decision makers in your industry, in your ideal client in that industry. So for you, Paul, it would be banking. And we talked about this before, right? Get the key decision makers into a boardroom where they can talk about stuff that's relevant to their business. It wouldn't be the All About Paul Zyla show. It would be solving a business problem and looking at, collaborating in ways that where people are not. You need friendly competitors, not people that would kill each other. And you know what I mean? Like you have to be very careful about how you bring these people into the room and what you're talking about. because nobody's going to give away their company secrets. But you can certainly create some kind of an event on even a quarterly basis, where people get together and they talk about a problem that's relevant to their industry, and common, or they talk about a trend, and maybe you bring in a guest speaker, or what, maybe you don't. Again, you do it strategically. You do it strategically, but you want to be able to pull those leads out of the room.
Yeah.
So the idea is you're not giving the leads to that speaker.
Right.
You're not feeding somebody else's business. You're going to feed your own business first. So so do it strategically, but you can certainly have a discussion, just a roundtable topic discussion about something that's trends in the business and how people are handling certain things. And it should be related to whatever your area of expertise is. So as it relates to IT, but you don't want a room full of IT managers, because they're not going to buy from you.
Right.
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 So
right. Exactly.
What banking CEOs need to know about cybersecurity, for example. Okay. Yep. And what are the threats, and what are companies doing to prevent this threat? Because it is a competitive advantage, but it's also a necessary precaution. You don't drive your car without insurance, right? You need these things for security. So this is important, and it's important. It's important for banking customers. It's important for the whole banking structure to have that looked after, and to not be slack about it, because the people who make it their business to crack codes and hack into things are incredibly clever.
Yeah, way ahead of organizations, for sure.
Yeah, and they know, because they're all working. They work for organizations. They know where their weak spots are. And these are often just weak spots because people who can make decisions don't make decisions. Right? It's not that they. Right. It's not that they can't. They just don't see the line between where they are and the crisis that's just around the corner.
Right. Yeah. And I completely agree with you on that, because I think of some of my messaging. You mentioned CIOs, and I'm like, well, I don't necessarily my focus is not on them, right? It's more on, okay, these, business decision makers, right, that are thinking about what's impacting the business, what's going to impact the board, what's going to impact them, what's going to impact their staff, their clients, their customers, etc. And that really always falls to CEOs, COOs, because they want to make operations as efficient as possible and as safe as possible. And then CFOs, because guess what? They have the purse strings. So versus the CIO or even CISO, they may have the challenges, right? And they probably have things that keep them up at night, but they have to get that messaged up to other decision makers that pull, like I said, that have the purse strings, that know they want that as part of their business strategy as a whole. They need, or it's going to close gaps in their business strategies, et cetera. So that's kind of where my focus area usually is the not CIOs. It's the CEOs, COOs, and CFOs.
And that's one of the mistakes that fractionals make. And sometimes I get people asking me if they have, how many people in my community are doing the same thing they're doing. They think that that they are the only people they should be networking with. Well, no one's going to give you their client. So,
exactly.
But they'd have to be, they're good to know, because if they have too many clients, they can make a referral that way. But you also want to connect with other people, other fractionals, because you want to connect with people who are working with your ideal client, period. So maybe it's a CFO in banking organizations, or some other person. But these are the people you want to connect with, people in the banking industry. If your ideal clients are in the are small independent banks and credit unions, right? So those are your people. So you don't need to feed that. You just need to talk to the right people. Let's just put it
Right.
that way.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to,
Yeah.
yes, you've got to find, and that's obviously, again, whoever is going to listen to this conversation is, find the right person to talk to, or be the right person that's making the decisions in your organization, and find the right, fractional person, or on demand, especially if you've got something that's on demand or needs attention and you need it to be, strategized and taken care of quickly. Don't forget about these experts that are in the field that bring decades of corporate experience and now want to share what they've learned and really make sure your organization is successful. So
Yeah.
thanks for that. Before we close, and boy, I've appreciated this very much. Any one last Reneeism that you could just give us before we
get good before you get big. Right? So a lot of the time people working in the fractional space will when you first start a business, that you think that you have this grand vision, you can do 10,000 different things, but you haven't built the foundation yet. And every business needs to have that strong foundation. And then you got to run that, and you got to keep it, solidify it and work the kinks out of it, and then you start layering. So get good, get big. And so even with a small bank, get good and then get big. And part of getting good is building the right infrastructure behind your business. And that IT component is critical. Correct?
Awesome.
I know you won't
Correct.
disagree with that one.
Oh, no, I'm not going to. No, I would never disagree with you, Renee. But no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. I love the one last thing to take away from Renee from this conversation. So thank you for walking us through, making real, or for clients or for fractionals to make real decisions, and especially around the trade-offs around whether it's their customers, business customers, if it's sales, marketing, the community, sustainability, and security. I appreciate that. And as organizations and leaders look towards 2026, this conversation to me has been a reminder that readiness isn't just about structure or growth plans. It's about clarity, discipline, and choosing the right work for the long term. So again, thank you, Renee. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for the first podcast of Under the Surface. So thank you. Have a great day.
I'm honored to be your first.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.